Welcome back to the Insane Asylum. This is your host, Commander Asylum. Welcome to session 106. How not to get your stuff blown up needlessly. Now I say needlessly because sometimes you're doing PvP, you're going to get blown up. It's just accepted. It's just a matter of what are you trading for. So, that being said, I want to talk about ganking and what it means, the difference between ganking and PvP. In EVE Online, the only place that is safe is docked up in an NPC station. Whenever you undock, no matter how high security the space is, you are consenting to PvP. So using the word gank is almost a misnomer. I think a more accurate word to use would be suicide ganking. So we kind of know now that in high sec there's police forces that if someone illegally attacks you, those police forces will show up and blow their ships up. They won't save you, they won't protect you, but they will blow up the ship of the other person. So people who PvP in high sec, outside of a war deck, are doing it to trade ships. They want to trade ships with you. And typically they want to trade the lowest value ship that they can to get the highest value that you will offer them. So we'll call that suicide ganking. I gave an example in a previous video where I had a hauler that was hauling 10 million worth of goods in the cargo, and I expect that if I die, I'm going to drop half of that cargo. So I'm expected to drop about 5 million worth of cargo once I die. So if they can kill me with a ship that's worth less than 5 million, then they're going to make a profit off of killing me. And there's groups of people that's what they do. They find ships that are hauling more ISK than it is worth to blow them up, and they blow them up. They hunt you down, set up traps, and kill you. So the first advice I can give you for not getting blown up while moving around in high sec is to find out what those organizations are and then set them to red. So I'll look up one right here. Code is an alliance of high-sec suicide gankers. So you want them to be red, so whenever they're in system with you, they will show up as red on your local chat. So you can do that so I searched here for the high-sec group, the high-sec PvP group, code. I double-clicked on them, it brings this one to up here. I can click on standings, and I can add contact, and I can make them red. Now any code in system with me is going to be red. Now sometimes for that to actually take effect you have to reload the game, but oh, there they are. Here's some people now already. So people are already showing up red that are in code. So that way as soon as you jump into the system, as long as you have your local chat open, you will see that you're in danger because there's people that want to kill you there. Okay, so that's one of the first and probably most important pieces of advice I can give you. So here's some obvious forehead slapping ways to lose your ship in high sec needlessly. One is flying around when you have a war declaration. So if you're in an NPC corporation, then it is impossible for anyone to war deck you. But if you are in a corporation that owns player structures, you can be war decked. And there's groups that war deck different organizations such as EVE University or Goonswarm Federation, right? These PvP corps live in high sec and they just blanket war deck these other organizations so that they can kill any of the capsuleers in those corporations and alliances on site without having a police response. So if you are war decked and you are flying around in high sec, you're probably going to die unless you're there to hunt them or to bait them. But if you're a new bro watching my channel, chances are you are not that. You're just trying to move a ship from one system to the other so you can do some ratting or whatever it is you want to do. So flying with a war deck, you're probably going to die. So some ways around that. So you're looking at one of my hauling characters I have here. He is in a NPC corp. Because he's in an NPC corp, he cannot be war decked. So I don't have to worry about that. That's one way around it. That's probably the easiest way around it. Okay. And the other way is to just contract a professional hauling service to move your stuff for you. Because they all have haulers that are out of corporations that cannot be war decked. Out of corporations that can be war decked. So they're always free to haul your stuff for a reasonable fee. So another thing is security status. So if you are kill on sight to a faction, do not go into that faction's space unless you're ready to fight their police forces. So if you're kill on sight in Amar space, be expected to be attacked by Amar security forces when you go to Amar space. That's another one to watch out for. And let's see. So we talked about being War Dec, we talked about your security status. Okay, so let's talk about PVE ships and getting those blown up. You may be inclined to throw as much money into a nice blingy PVE ship in high sec because you think you're safe and because you're in high sec. But here's the thing: we talked about trading ships. If you have a battleship that's worth 5 billion ESK, well, the high sec PvP Suicide Ganking Corps could probably blow that ship up for much less ISK than you're going to drop with all of your blingy modules. So that ship is typically not safe to move around high sec as it is. So this is a problem for the incursion communities. Here's how they get around it. They use special hauling ships called Bowheads to move their ships around. Additionally, what they can do is they can take off all of their super expensive blingy modules off their ships, put them onto a specialized hauling ship, which we'll talk about later, and move all their expensive stuff in a specialized stealthy hauling ship to where they want to take it to. And meanwhile, they just have a brick tanked battleship that they're going to move through high sec. That's not worth ganking in high sec. So that's the key to not getting your PVE ship blown up in high sec, is by keeping the value of it so low that it's not worth ganking. Okay, so let's say you're a poor new bro and you don't want to hire Red Frog or PushX to haul your stuff for you. You decide you want to do the hauling yourself. Well, there's a lot to that. And there's a reason those organizations exist, and they're all professionals and will get your stuff moved for a reasonable fee. But there's a reason they exist, and that's because it is dangerous to haul your own stuff. It requires a lot of skills, a lot of planning, a lot of forethought to do that safely. Now you can just throw your stuff in a hauler and YOLO it and hope for the best. And I'm going to talk about some ways to do that as safe as possible here. So the first thing to note is that these hauling ships, like what you see here, are not for PvP. It is pointless to put combat drones on it or to put turrets on it. Right? You're not going to kill anything, and you're not going to scare anybody off by sicking your couple drones on them from a ship like this. You're going to die way faster than to them. Then you're not going to do any damage to them. So that's just a waste of your money. I mean, you're going to die in this ship, and you might as well just make it as cheap and painless as possible. Okay, so that's it. These are not for PvP. What you're looking at right here is a T1 ship. There's also T2 hauling ships. Those are the specialized ships I was talking about first. Let's focus on these T1 ships. In these T1 ships, you have a couple different types of these ships. You have weaker, slower ships that have bigger cargo holds, and you have faster, sleeker ships that have smaller cargo holds. That's right here under these haulers. I'm in a Galente hauler is what I'm in right now. The Galente's got some other specialized ships, but in general, all the other factions, including Galente, outside of the specialized ships, fall into that. So here you have the big ship that's slower and weaker, and you got the ship that has more tank and is faster but has a smaller cargo hold. So that's the first thing. You kind of choose your poison here. What do you want to use to haul? I almost never use these big ships to haul. I usually use these sleeker ships that have a little bit more tank. They're faster and have smaller cargo holds. So if I'm doing a T1 hauler, that's what I'm going to do. So remember that it's all about trading. You want to make sure that your hauling ship is not worth more dead than it will cost the gankers to kill you. So you do that by first maximizing your tank. So you can see here I'm just stacked with shield extenders and a shield hardener. One thing you gotta watch out for, so you maximize your tank, but these cargo expanders, let's see what I got here. That is Okay, so I've maximized my tankier. You'll also see that I fitted a cloak and a micro warp drive here, and this is a 50 meganewton micro warp drive. Now this is important, and this is going to make me almost uncatchable in high sec, and I will show you why shortly. Okay, so for the T2 ships, let's go back to the ships, take a look at what we have. You have some specialized ships. You kind of lead into it. You got deep space transports, and they can be brick tanked ships, but they also have a massive cargo hold. It's a separate cargo hold that it's called a fleet hangar, and they can hold a whole bunch of extra stuff in that. They can be brick tanked, and they have natural warp disruption immunity to their ships, so they can be hard to pin down and hard to catch, especially if you use a micro warp drive and cloak on these things. The other ship is a Blockade Runner. These ships are unscannable by cargo hold scanners. So the PvPers in high sec are going to assume that you're hauling something really expensive when you're one of these ships, because they can't scan you to find out. The only reason to use these is when you're moving something really expensive. These ships are also quite quick, they warp fast, and they have a covert ops cloak that allows them to go invisible within a second of uncloaking on a gate. These are probably the safest things that you can fly around in high sec. So those are the specialized ships. Additionally, we have freighters and jump freighters. Those are beyond the scope of this video. You're not flying these as a new bro. Okay, so we talked about maximizing my tank, and we talked about the micro warp drive cloak tricks. Let's talk about that. Cloak tricks. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this. So here's how I do this. I'm undocking from a dangerous station. I'm in G to 4-4. Those people that just sit here and all they want to do is kill people like me that are undocking my ship. So what I've done is I've made a bookmark right off the undock here. I call it an instant undock. So as soon as I undock, I don't try to align to where I'm going. I'm first going to warp myself to this bookmark. And since it's lined straight out of the station, I'm just going to instantly warp there. And all these people trying to kill haulers are not going to have enough time to target me and kill me. Now I'm going to align where I want to go. So let's go ahead and go to, let's go to perimeter here. Okay, so I'm going to go to perimeter. Now on the other side of this gate, I'm going to use the micro warp drive cloak trick. So you can see what that looks like in action. So for that, on my toolbar, I have my micro warp drive and I have my cloak. What I'm going to do is on the other side of the gate, I am going to align. I'm not going to warp or jump, I'm going to align. And then I'm going to turn on my cloak, and then immediately after that I'm going to turn on my micro warp drive. And then I'm going to wait until my micro warp drive is about 80% done through its cycle, and I'm going to disable my cloak. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to almost instantly warp after becoming uncloaked. So let's see what that looks like. Let's go to this next station here. I'm going to go to Erlin. Okay, so I'm ready. So let's pretend that there's some people here ready to kill me. Let's make it impossible to kill them. So first is I align, cloak, micro warp drive. Now I'm watching. I'm getting my hand over here on the warp. Shut off my cloak now, and then I hit warp. You see, I uncloaked and almost see I'm still uncloaking, and I'm in warp now. So that is the micro warp drive cloak trick. I highly recommend you practice this several times before actually hauling stuff and trying to use it, because it is technical and it is easy to mess up. Okay, so we talked about undocking and using instant undock bookmarks. So for those busy stations like Jita, it's extremely important to have an instant undock bookmark, or you're going to die as soon as you undock. And you don't want to do that. We talked about micro warp drive cloak trick. Another thing you can do is have a sub 2 second align. Now this is not foolproof, but this makes you extremely difficult to catch, especially in high sec. And that's because the minimum amount of time it takes to target somebody is 2 seconds. So if your align time is under 2 seconds, you can typically align and start your warp out before they have a chance to even target you, let alone tackle you and kill you. So there's some common ships that are used for that. I use the Sunesis, which is the Jovian destroyer. It's worth about 20 million in JITA that you can get it, but you can configure that ship so that it has quite a large cargo hold, but has a sub 2-second online time. Now, some of the ways you're going to die in that ship are they're probably going to get you on the undock, or while you're trying to dock, is the two easiest ways to kill that ship, or they can try to smart bomb you with enough smart bombs. And yeah, it's just going to dock up here. So if I was in one of those sub 2-second aligned ships, right, they could try to get me while I'm assuming that I land outside of the 2,500 meters of this station, and I gotta slow boot my way in. They can kill me there, or on the undock while I'm taking several seconds to align. Because here's the thing: if you're a sub 2-second align, that only applies when you're at a dead stop. So that only applies when you go through a gate on your other side of it, and you're sitting perfectly still, and you start your align
docking permission requested
to the warp. If you are instead undocking, when you undock, you're already moving a direction. So if you're trying to align out in a different direction, it's going to take significantly longer than those 2 seconds to align out. And that is a time for them to just blow you up, which happens often, especially in places like JITA. So even with a sub 2-second align ship, you're going to want that instant undock. See how long that took for my ship to dock? That was all time where it took me to get within docking range. I was easily killable during that time. So there's ways to combat that as well. That's an Insta-dock Bookmarks. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Insta-dock Bookmarks. Where's JITA? Here's JITA. Let's go home. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about other things while I'm heading back to JITA here. I'm a couple jumps out. So we talked about having a sub 2-second line. We talked about the micro overdrive cloak trick. We talked about making sure we're not worth killing. That not worth killing is both when I'm hauling and when I am just moving around in a PVE ship. Let's say I got like a dominance I'm using to clear level 4 missions. I want to make sure that's not too blingy. Right, so another thing is scouting. So there's a couple ways you can scout. The first is the Eve Gatecheck website. That looks like this right here. So for this, you just put in where you're coming from and where you're going to. Put in check, and it shows you if there's any gate camps on the way. So it shows you the route, shows you the security of all these routes, how many kills were in each system, and then how many kills of those were at the gates. This helps you find, systems that are spicy for combat and systems that are currently being gate camped. This is an invaluable tool. I'll link it in the description below so that you can bookmark it. Highly recommend it. The other thing you can do is you can multi-box your own scout. So you can make a ship, like make a second account, and then have a ship that goes out one jump ahead of you when you're moving whatever it is you're hauling, and make sure there's no gate camps or anything dangerous on the other side of those. So if you're going to lose a ship, you're going to lose a really cheap scout ship, and not your super nice, marauder that you're using to clear level 4 missions. Okay, now let's talk about the Insta-dock Bookmark. This is really important to have. To make one of these, you make a bookmark right at the undock of the station that you want to make an Insta-dock Bookmark for. So you can see here's my bookmarks tab. I have an Insta-dock Bookmark. I'm going to warp to this. I made this bookmark right at the exit of JITA 44 station. Now, it's extremely dangerous to click on this particular station and then just warp or even dock, because it's possible to land outside of the docking range and then spend several seconds slow boating into the docking radius of that station. JITA's improved a lot over the recent years, but it's still possible, and they still kill people here all the time. So you can see now I land well within the docking ring here, and I can just instantly dock now. I don't have to worry about landing outside and slow boating in and getting killed that way. So super important. Instant undock bookmarks, instant dock bookmarks. And alright, now that I'm safely docked up, let's go over some examples of people that have died in HiSec hauling their stuff, or maybe hauling some other people's stuff. So, first, I have a Miasmus here. This guy was killed in Udama. Now, I look at this, he was killed 10k off the gate. He was killed by Safety, which is one of those HiSec PvP suicide ganking corps. Safety. So this is one of the ones that you want to make red on your see what it's going to do it right now. We'll just do it right now. Safety. So these are one of the groups. Here they are. So double click them. Take the standing. See, I've already set them to -10, so they're red. So whenever they're in system, they show up as red in the local chat, and I can tell that I'm in danger with them. You can see, like, this guy here was autopiloting, right? Even worse, he had no tanks. We talked about tanking, adding tank to yourself. Don't make it worth ganking you by making you as hard to kill as possible. This guy had no tank, and even worse, he was autopiloting. And even worse than that, he was autopiloting through Udama, which is where these people live. So in a previous video, I talked about how dangerous it is to autopilot. If you autopilot and you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to die, like this guy did. As you can see, this guy lost 38 million when he died. Let's take a look at this guy right here. This guy lost almost 500 million while hauling his Tyra through high-sec space. This was a 0.8 system he died in. If you look at this, he died to an NPC. How did he die to an NPC? Well, this person's the Angel Cartel, which is kill on sight in a Mars space. So they had low security status. It took a ship into a space where they were kill on sight, and lo and behold, they died and lost a ton of money. Let's look at this sigil here. This sigil had a good tank. Look at that. These are all tank modules. Tough as nails. But this person was War Decked by the initiative. And so these people could easily kill him without having to worry about retribution from the police forces. Let's look back at this Tyra also. This Tyra also had a pretty good tank going on, but again, if you're kill on sight to the local security forces, you're probably going to die. Let's look at this guy. This guy lost 2 billion to Code. That, again, that's that high-sec PvP ganking, suicide ganking corp that we made red, right? So this was a tornado. This is kind of one of the ships they all use to delete you. This happened off the Stargate in Jeddah. So this looks like this person came through the Stargate and in perimeter was aligning out and was... Right, they don't have the micro warp drive in Cloak here. That'd be one way to prevent this from happening, be having a micro warp drive in Cloak, because as you can see, they're well tanked. But this tornado hits so hard, it just chewed right through that tank and killed them before they could align out. But if this person had a micro warp drive in a Cloak, they would have been able to avoid this. Okay, and they're also hauling 2 billion ISK in a ship that this ship here probably only cost 100 mil. So they made a massive amount of profit on this. So this person did not make themselves not worth killing, for lack of a better word. Okay, so those are some examples. I hope this helps you. I hope this saves you some heartache and pain as you try to move your stuff through high-sec. And look forward to talking to you next time. And until then, fly dangerous.